So, you want to tint windows. Let me guess, you found out how lucrative it is? How much money you can make? Cool. This is a video to start. This is basically the video that I wish I saw 4 years ago when I started tinting windows. So my name is Max, I'm 22, and I put film on glass. So this is my side gig. I'm full-time in college, and this is basically how I support myself through school. But what I want to do is start a series of all the things I've learned from teaching myself how to tint and hopefully show others a lot of things I've learned. So there's 3 ways you can get into tint if you really want to. You can go the school route, which they're usually pretty expensive, but they'll excel your career really fast. There's not a ton of them around there, so you'll probably have to travel in the long run and take some time off because it's not something you can learn overnight. And a lot of times there's like stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 classes to build you up to becoming a professional tinter. Another route is teaching yourself, which is what I did, watching a lot of YouTube videos, screwing up a lot, putting a lot of time into it. That's what I did. Not the best route necessarily, but it's a route, and that's what I'm going to talk about mainly today. And then the third is if you want to do the dirty route, which is getting hired at a tint shop, having them teach you, quitting, and then start your own, which I do not recommend one bit. If you do that, you're a piece of crap. A lot of guys put everyone puts a ton of work into people that get hired at a tint shop because it's not something you learn overnight. Like I said, you got to put a lot of time and effort and money into you to make you a tinter. So if you get hired at a tint shop, stay there, because I'm a tinter and I know what it's like to teach someone, or not really teach, but it's a shitty thing to do. So I'm mainly going to talk about teaching myself from YouTube and what I learned from everything. So many of you have probably already watched quite a few videos on YouTube of people tinting, and you're like, oh, that looks easy, cool, and then you go to do it and it's fucked and it looks like shit, and you're like, what the heck? And I'll tell you right now, there are a crap load of YouTube videos on tinting. Like, so many, it's overwhelming, and I've watched a lot of them. So it's hard to tell what's good and what's bad, and I think one of the biggest things I've learned from it is there's so many ways of going about tinting. Yeah, some things you can't get around, they have to be done a certain way, but everyone has their own little style and little taste, and everything works differently. Some guys like to do things differently and it works better for them, blah, blah, blah. So you got to take it for granted when you're watching all those videos, because I think one thing that I screwed up was I got stuck in my head, like, this is the way to do it, and then that wasn't the way that worked the best for me, and I was so stuck on it, it just screwed me up. So some of the guys like I watched a ton of is Matt from Tint Studio. He does a ton of good videos. If you don't know who he is, look him up. He's a really good guy. He does tutorials, and he live streams when he tints, which you can learn a lot from, more than you'd think. Also, Ralph Van Belt, he makes a ton of good tutorials. He's a really good tinter, been tinting for years. So both those guys I learned a lot from. And also there's just a lot of little guys that I watched and learned from them. But there's so many things. There's so many little things you have to learn about tinting that you need to pick up from doing as well as watching people. And that's why when I first started, I literally would go tint, go watch YouTube videos, go tint, screw it up, go watch YouTube videos. And I just did that for a long time. So I've been tinting for just about 4 years now. I started out just doing my own stuff. I was one day, literally I got my stuff tinted, or my dad got his truck tinted, and they left a squeegee in there, and I was like, I wonder if I can do it. And then it spiraled into this. So it's been a long road of learning, I'll tell you that right now. And if you don't have a lot of patience and a lot of, patience is the biggest one, and just being able to stay calm and just get it done. If you don't have patience, I would just stop watching this video and go do something else, because this is one of these trades that requires a assload of patience. So if you don't have that, look somewhere else. Okay, so now that I've told you that there's a bunch of good tutorials and stuff out there, so this is the start of the series. I plan on making a bunch more tutorials on actually how to tint, but this is basically the first video, and I wanted to run through how I got started, what I learned from getting started, and what I think you should do. So like I said, I started, screwing stuff up, and you're probably like, okay, what do I do then? Well, what I would do is, you can buy this film. This is GeoShield. This is stuff that I use, really good film, a little on the spendier side. What I would do is get some cheaper stuff and go play with your own rigs. That's basically how I started. I have one trick that I've tinted probably like 30 times and wasted hundreds of dollars on film on, but I learned so much from it that it's paid itself off. tenfold. So that's like, the biggest thing is I wouldn't buy, well, not the biggest thing, but I wouldn't buy the super expensive film to begin, just because you're gonna screw up and you need to learn from it, and you don't want to be blowing through money like crazy. So if you have your own rig that's untinted, of course, I would go play with it, cut some windows, watch some YouTube videos of people cutting them out, get your cuts right, get your cleaning right, get your laying in the truck right. Just experience, like you're playing with the film and learning it, because that's one of the biggest things with tinting is learning the film, like learning what it does when you do this, how it acts when you do this. That is huge, and it takes a lot of time to do. You wouldn't think, like, everyone on here who wants to learn how to tint, you watch like a YouTube video and you're like, oh, dude, that looks so easy, I can do that. And then you go to do it and it looks like fucking shit. Yeah, because it's a lot harder than you think, I would know. Not only do you need film, but you also need tools. There are a crap ton of tint tools out there. And I'll tell you right now, you do not need all of them. I have a pouch right here that I mainly carry. There's tools in this whole thing, but I mean, you can tint a whole rig with like 10 tools and it'll be perfect. That's basically, I think there's like 5 or 6 tools I use almost every time, and that's it. Like, a lot of guys have different ways, they like different tools, blah, 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 but you don't need a ton of tools. There's like, you need tools for certain things, and if you guys want, I'll walk through my tools and what I use in the next video. But, you know, film tools, that's what you gotta start. And vehicles is the next biggest thing. Yeah, you can tint your own rigs like I was saying, but you know, that's only one rig. And one of the biggest things too, that I feel like all these tint guys that show you how to tint do a really good job of showing you. There's a lot of, that's how I learned, there's a ton of that. But they don't really talk too much about how so many vehicles are different. Everything you tint is different. There's new obstacles, new things you have to learn, new seals, new cut lines, new everything. Like, everything's different on every car. And it's hard to like say this is the way you tint a window, because every rig is different and it's impossible. There's not one way. Every vehicle has its own set of little things that you have to watch out for. Like the bottom seal is different. I'm a bottom loader, so I set my film on the top, roll it up, and then tuck the bottom, which is what I would recommend doing. That's the best way to start, in my opinion. I can also show a video on that if you want. Just comment below. And that's one of the things that I got caught up on, is like, you know, I would watch a video and be like, oh, this is the way to do it. But every rig is different. I mean, yes, you follow the same steps in a way, but every rig has its own set of challenges, and you basically have to, once you get to a point, you can like feel out a rig and be like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. And then you do it, maybe you screw up once and then you figure it out. Or once you get to the point, you just kind of do it and you know how to work around stuff while it's going on. But when you're early on, stuff like tricky seals or cut lines will screw you up like you would not believe. And trust me, I know, because it's screwed me up countless times. So another thing I want to talk about is heat shrinking. This is this is the hardest thing you're gonna have to get through with tinting windows. Using this bad boy right here. Whether you're doing windshields, back windows, some side windows needed a little, mainly cars, but heat shrinking, especially windshields and back windows, is extremely hard. It's taken me, I'll say 2 years before I was like, sure, I can do it, no problem. And I wasted a lot of film, spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to do it. I watched all the videos on it, all of them, hours of videos. And it's as much as knowing the technique as playing with the film and learning how it acts, and spending time with it is pretty much one of the best ways to do it. And that's kind of what I did, as well as watching YouTube videos on it, which I also plan on making another video on heat shrinking. And not to hate on anyone, there's a lot of good videos out there on it, but there's some things I'm like, now that I've done it, I'm like, wow, I've watched all these videos and nobody talked about this, or blah, blah, blah. And that's really why I started this series too, because yes, there's a ton of good videos out there. Mad respect to all those guys, even the guys I mentioned, they've helped me out a ton. But there's a lot of little things that I'm like, wow, nobody mentioned that. That would have helped me out a lot. So that's what I plan on doing with this series. I also wanted to talk about price. If you're doing your own vehicles, obviously you're not charging yourself. But if you want to experiment on other people's vehicles, so this is what I did. When I first started out, I did my own rigs, got kind of good at it, and then my buddies, I have a bunch of buddies that have trucks and a lot of rigs, and they're like, hey, you want to do mine? And I was like, well, I'm not that good. Like, I don't really know how good it's gonna be. And they're like, okay, well, what if we do it cheap, blah, blah, blah. And basically for the first, like, I don't know, year and a half, I made no money tinting. Like, I mean, granted, I wasn't full-time working at it too. This was just like on the side when I had time, and I'm in school doing other work, construction. So I basically didn't make any money the first like year, because I knew I needed to learn, and I knew it wasn't worth it to me to charge people for something I knew I couldn't make perfect. Or like, I never like gave really shitty tint, I'll say that, but now that I've been tinting for a while and I know I can make titty with like windows that are freaking perfect, I'm like, wow, fuck, I wish I could have done that better. But it's all I learned from it. And most of the time when I tinted for my buddies, I'd be like, sure, you pay for the material, I'll do it for free. And it was more of like investing in myself, because I mean, I wasn't getting paid for my time or anything. And it was my buddies' rigs, and a lot of times I would do it on some, older rigs or something that they didn't really care about, and they just kind of wanted it tinted. And I was like, cool, I think I can do it and make it look all right. And that's what I did. That's how I started. And I really didn't start doing random people until like 2 years in. It was all like close buddies. I mean, now I'm at the point where I can just, here's a rig, tint it, okay? Like, it's no big deal. But as far as like when you should advertise and start actually getting money for it, it's basically when you know you can walk up to a rig and be like, okay, I can tint it. Or like, if there's a certain couple rigs you can tint, just do those from the start, and like get more practice, do more rigs. Like, it'll help you. Like, sure, you're not gonna make a ton of money from the beginning, but once you get good and you can confidently do rigs, it doesn't matter anymore. I'll tell you what, when I first started doing rigs that I knew it needed to be good and I actually got paid for, every time a rig would come in and I'd start tinting it, I would literally have a panic attack. I would be like, oh my God, like freaking out, because I'm like, dude, I can't screw this up. And like, it sucked. But like, now you just go through the motions once you get through that. I mean, getting through that sucks, I'll tell you that right now, because I went through that a lot, and it's not fun. But that's really the way you got to do it if you want to learn yourself, and from YouTube. Sure, if you're in a school, you kind of go through that too, or if anyone teaches you, but teaching yourself is a lot harder because you don't have anyone to ask questions to. I also found a lot of help in Facebook forums, like asking guys like, hey, I'm having this problem and I keep having it. What do I do? They help me out a ton. There's a lot of good resources, but learning yourself is not easy. It takes a lot of time and patience. So you learn a lot from that. There's so many things I wish I could just be like blah and tell everyone right now that I've learned from all this. But that's why I started this series. This is the first video of it. I plan on making more. I'll probably do windshields, back windows, stuff about contamination in windows, cutting, all that. Basically, I just want to help people that struggled like I did, and try to answer some of those questions, because like I was saying, all these guys make it look super easy. Mad respect to all of them. Thank you for the help if any of them are watching. But I just want to help those people that are starting from nothing and building up, because you've done it before, tinting windows ain't easy, but pays good. So I'll thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe and let me know if you want to see anything else in my next coming videos about tint stuff, because I have a lot of info that I've learned to share, and this is the start of the series. So like and subscribe. Thanks.